Sarah woke up before the sun did. That was normal. Everything about her life required her to be somewhere before anyone noticed she existed, before the kitchen filled with ranked wolves who did not want to share space with a blank neck, before the corridors became crowded with people whose eyes slid past her like water off stone. She pulled on her work clothes in the dark and went downstairs. The pack house smelled like polish and nervous energy. Today was the day. The Alpha King was coming. Once every 10 years, Kale, ruler of all 12 packs, came to inspect the Ashcroft territory. He reviewed ranks. He confirmed alliances. He decided, in his quiet and absolute way, which packs were worth his continued recognition and which had grown comfortable in ways that would not be tolerated. Every wolf in the house had been preparing for 2 weeks. Sarah had been assigned the floors. She did not complain about this. Complaining required the belief that someone would listen, and she had stopped carrying that particular weight a long time ago. She swept and mopped and worked her way from one end of the house to the other, and she did it well, because doing it badly would have given Elder Marin another reason to stand in a doorway and list her failures in that flat, measured voice that never rose above a conversation tone and somehow felt worse than shouting. Elder Marin had decided, 15 years ago, that the girl child born without a rank mark was a problem to be managed. Sarah had been 7 years old. She did not remember making any choice about this. The blank space on the back of her neck, where every wolf carried the mark of their standing, had simply never filled in. No mark, no rank. No place in the hierarchy that held the pack together like a spine. The elders called it a void birth. They said it quietly, around her, not to her, which was its own kind of cruelty. She finished the east corridor, just as the first ranked wolves came downstairs, sleek and dressed, and already talking about positioning. Dara passed her without looking, which was the good version of how Dara could pass her. Dara's bad version involved comments delivered to the air just beside Sarah's ear, low enough to be deniable, precise enough to land exactly where she intended. Today, Dara simply walked through the space Sarah occupied, as though the air there held no particular interest. Sarah collected her mop and moved on. The convoy arrived at midday. 3 black vehicles. No announcement, no ceremony. The front door opened and Kale walked in, and the room rearranged itself around him, not physically, but in the way every wolf straightened, every voice lowered, every ranked member of the Ashcroft pack suddenly remembered exactly how to stand. Sarah was carrying a crate of cleaning supplies through the side corridor when it happened. She came around the corner moving at her usual pace, which was efficient, but not careful enough for moments like this, and walked directly into a wall. The wall was warm. The wall exhaled. She stepped back and looked up, and the wall was Kale, the Alpha King of 12 packs, standing in the corridor where he absolutely should not have been, because according to the schedule she had memorized, he was supposed to be in the formal receiving hall receiving formalities. The crate hit the floor. Glass shattered. Sarah stood in the wreckage of her supply crate and waited for what came next. She expected a correction. She expected a guard to appear and remove her from the corridor. She expected, at minimum, to be addressed in the tone that ranked wolves used when they spoke to Omegas who had done something inconvenient. Kale looked at the shattered glass, then at the blank back of her neck, then at her face. He said nothing. His wolf, the ancient, enormous thing that lived inside him, older than his bloodline, the part of him that every wolf in his presence could feel the way you feel pressure before a storm, went completely still. Not the stillness of something preparing to move, the stillness of something that had just recognized something it had no name for. Kale stepped around her. He walked down the corridor and turned the corner and was gone. Elder Marin appeared 30 seconds later, moving with the terrible efficiency of a woman who had eyes in every room. She looked at the broken glass. She looked at Sarah. She spoke for 2 minutes without raising her voice, and every sentence was about the pack's reputation, and the risk of visibility, and the cost of certain individuals drawing attention to their shortcomings at exactly the wrong moment. Sarah listened to all of it. Then she cleaned up the glass and found a replacement crate and went back to work. The inspection lasted 3 days. Kale was thorough and efficient, and almost entirely unreadable. He reviewed every ranked wolf, asked precise questions about territory management and conflict resolution, and made decisions in the way powerful people make decisions. Quietly, without committee, and in ways that would not be revisited. On the second night, Sarah went to the archive room to return a ledger she had been asked to retrieve, and found Cale already there, alone, with a different ledger open in front of him. She recognized the year on the spine, 15 years ago. She stopped in the doorway. He did not ask her to leave. She set her ledger on the shelf she had come for, and did not rush to go. They existed in the same room for a stretch of time that felt longer than it probably was, and he did not speak, and she did not speak, and something moved in the air between them that had no good category. His wolf paced. She could feel it. Every wolf could feel the alpha's internal state, the way you feel wind direction before it arrives as actual weather. But it was not pacing in aggression. It was pacing the way something paces when it cannot locate the right response to what it is experiencing. She left before he did. She did not look back. The following evening, the ranked dinner became the occasion for what Dara had clearly been waiting for. A serving tray, an arranged collision, Sarah holding the spilled contents in her hands, while the table watched, and Dara delivered the correction with the smooth confidence of someone rehearsed. The hall did what halls do. Some people laughed. Most people looked elsewhere, which was the more honest response. Cale did not laugh. He did not look elsewhere. He watched Sarah from the head table, with an expression she could not interpret, and she did not try to. She picked up the tray. She walked out. She did not let her hands shake until she was in the kitchen with the door closed. On the third morning, Elder Merrin requested a private audience with the Alpha King. Sarah learned about this the way she learned most things, from the behavior of others. Packmates who had ignored her for 22 years began looking at her with something that resembled discomfort, not guilt. Discomfort was easier to carry than guilt, and most people preferred it. She went to the eastern border at dawn, the way she always did when something needed to be thought through. She ran until the thinking became breathing, and the breathing became something close to peace, and on her way back, she found a young packmate, 9 years old, freshly rank-marked, crying alone in the long grass, because his first shifted run had gone badly, and he believed this meant something permanent about his worth. She sat down beside him. She talked him through it, not with comforting sounds, but with actual information, about how the first shift always felt like failure, about how the body needed time to learn the language of itself, about how the mark on his neck was true, regardless of what one morning proved or didn't prove. Her voice was different when she spoke to him. It had weight in it. It had the particular gravity of someone who understood, precisely and personally, what it felt like to believe you were wrong about yourself. The boy stopped crying. Eventually he ran back. Sarah sat in the grass for another moment before following. She did not know that Cale had been watching from the tree line. She did not know that his wolf, watching her, had not paced, had not stilled, had, slowly, lowered its great head. The closing ceremony was held in the main hall with the full ranked assembly present. Elder Merrin stood at the front, with the kind of composure that only comes from absolute certainty. She presented her petition in formal terms. Proper language. The correct structure for requesting the removal of a pack member who represented, in her careful phrasing, an unresolved liability to the integrity of the Ashcroft standing. She cited 15 years of precedent. She cited the rank system. She cited the King's own charter on pack purity. The room stood behind her. Cale listened to every word. When she finished, he rose. The room prepared itself for confirmation. He asked one question. Who trained her? Elder Merrin blinked. She has no trainer. She holds no rank. There is nothing to. Who trained her? He said again. And it was not a question the second time. The silence that followed was its own kind of answer. No one had trained her. No one had offered. The girl with no mark had been left to build herself from whatever material she could find in the spaces between everyone else's attention. Cale walked to the center of the hall. Every ranked wolf felt what happened next before they saw it. The pressure in the room shifted. The air changed its quality. Cale's wolf rose in him. Not a full shift, but enough. Enough that every wolf present felt the ancient weight of it, the thing that was older than his title and deeper than his authority. His eyes changed. The room temperature dropped. He turned toward Sarah, who stood at the back of the hall where Omegas stood. And the Alpha King's wolf, The oldest living wolf spirit in 12 packs lowered its head. One slow, complete, deliberate bow, held for 3 full seconds. The hall stopped breathing. The back of Sarah's neck began to burn, not painfully, the way something burns when it has been dormant for a very long time and has finally found the conditions it needed. Cale straightened. He spoke to the assembly, and his voice was measured and final, and left no room for the kind of discussion that usually follows uncomfortable news. He told them what his wolf had told him. The blank space on the back of Sarah's neck was not an absence. It was not a void. It was the oldest mark in the entire bloodline of wolfkind, the mark that existed before packs had names, before ranks had been invented, before the hierarchy that everyone in this room had built their identity upon had been organized into the system they now treated as nature itself. A sovereign's mark. It belonged to no rank, because it stood above all of them. It was so rare that most wolves believed it to be legend. 3 had existed in recorded history. Sarah was the 4th. Elder Marin's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Dara had gone the color of someone who has just understood, all at once, the full weight of what they have spent 15 years doing. Cale looked at Elder Marin for one moment, without anger, which was somehow worse than anger. "We did not know," Elder Marin said. Her voice was very quiet. "You chose not to look," he said. He did not say it cruelly. He said it the way you say a true thing. Plainly, with no decoration, and then you move on. The aftermath was not what stories usually promise. There was no wave of apologies. No packmates lining up to correct 15 years of silence and sideways cruelty. People who had watched Dara spill that tray and laughed, or looked away, or done both, now moved through the same corridors Sarah moved through, and could not locate the language for what they owed her. They reached for words and found only the particular emptiness that lives where honesty should be. Sarah did not help them find it. Cale offered her formal standing the following morning, in private, without ceremony. A seat at the sovereign level. Recognition across all 12 packs. A title that made Elder Marin's petition not just wrong but, retroactively, a kind of embarrassment for everyone who had signed it. He made the offer carefully. He knew it was also a door that closed behind you, that accepting meant leaving the only place she had ever lived, however poorly it had treated her. He did not pretend otherwise. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "I already decided," she said. "I just haven't told you yet." He almost smiled. She decided she would remember the almost. That night, Dara came to her room. She did not apologize. Dara was not, perhaps, built for apology. The architecture of her personality did not easily support it, and Sarah had no particular investment in watching her try. Instead, Dara stood in the doorway and asked the question that had apparently been living in her for longer than she wanted to admit. "How did you survive it?" she said. "All of it, without breaking." Sarah thought about this honestly, the way she thought about most things, without decorating the answer. "I decided," she said, "that the breaking wasn't theirs to do." Dara stood in the doorway for another moment, then she left. Whether she carried that anywhere useful was not something Sarah could know, and she made her peace with not knowing. The morning she left, Sarah stood at the eastern border one last time. The mark on the back of her neck burned faintly in the cold air, gold at the edges when the light hit it right. It had come in slowly over the 2 days since the ceremony, not like a brand, but like something returning to the surface after a long time underwater. She was not the same girl who had swept floors in the dark. She was also not entirely different from her. The girl who had sat in the grass with a crying child, who had said, "Your fear smells louder than your words," and meant it, who had cleaned up broken glass without falling apart. That girl was coming with her. Sarah decided this was good. That girl had been the most honest version of her. Power had not made her. It had simply arrived to match what was already there. She turned away from the tree line, not because she forgave the Ashcroft pack. That was a longer, more complicated story that she would live out slowly over years, the way most true things are lived. She turned because she had decided, specifically and on purpose, that the pack house with its polished floors and its ranked dinners and its 15 years of collective silence would not be the last thing she walked away from. She wanted more last things, better ones. Cale was waiting at the edge of the grounds, not watching the house, watching the tree line, the same spot where his wolf had first understood what it was looking at. He did not call to her. He did not need to. She walked toward him. They left together, and neither of them looked back, and the morning moved forward the way mornings do, without asking permission, without ceremony, without any particular interest in what had happened before. Just forward. Always forward.